we talk at the same time, then we
Then
can see who's too loud.
Too loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Too quiet.
Too quiet. What would you rate that outfit? We got to go at the same time on it.
Okay.
So scale from 1 to 10 here. Let me...
Yeah, get on camera. You might want to crouch down a little bit. Okay.
Oh, crouch.
Great butt.
Oh, thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. 10.
Oh,
It's a great outfit.
You did it right. Okay, so
I did look at him, but I was going to say 10 anyway.
You got to go with the 10.
Yeah.
There's zero room for improvement.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. There's a belt, which is important. I was just going to say, you got to have a belt with those pants.
Yeah, no belt. That's probably like an 8.5.
Exactly. Yeah.
8.5 tops. Did you ever see the movie Blank Man?
Blank Man, no.
Damon Wayans. It's one of those where some of the premises in the 90s were pretty ugh, I don't know if you can get away with that now. He plays like a mentally challenged superhero.
It sounds familiar. I was kind of loved Damon Wayans for a very short 6-month period of my life. What was that movie where he was a drill sergeant?
Major Payne.
Major Payne. I was gonna call him Sergeant Slaughter.
Speaking of wrestling, oh yeah, it's right behind you.
Oh,
Major
there
Payne.
it is.
Yep, I liked Major Payne. I liked Blank Man, and then he was in one that kind of flew under the radar. I don't know if I had the DVD. It was with Adam Sandler. It's called Bulletproof.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It was pretty good. It's pretty raunchy. I think it was Adam Sandler's first R-rated movie.
Oh wow.
Where they're dropping F-bombs. They're dropping. Calls him the N-bomb. No, I'm just kidding. He doesn't drop any N's.
Maybe though.
No, but
No.
Basically Damon Wayans plays this they're both criminals, but Damon Wayans is an undercover cop, and he flips on him, and then it's a wacky scenario where he has to escort him across the country, and Sandler's all mad at him because he thought he was his friend, and then he ends up, I won't spoil it.
Oh yeah, good. No, I might have to check it out. There was that period of time where there was a lot of let's have our comedic guys be criminals that are pretending to play cops. Because Blue Streak, of course.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the movies I've seen the most in my entire life. I've probably seen it maybe close to 24 times. We loved it. Loved it growing up.
It's so funny. There's the one, Dave Chappelle's character in that movie is one of my favorite characters ever. Just how he never knows what's going on. And there's the one scene where Miles, Martin Lawrence, he's like, now this is going to hurt a little bit. He goes, huh? This is going to hurt a little bit. He goes, okay. He just accepts it.
The interrogation scene or something, yeah.
Yes. He's like, listen, man, you a jewel thief. He's like, no, I'm a drug dealer now. He's like, man, why you selling this shit when you got that big diamond in your hand? It's so good.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your 40-day challenge. What do you say?
Let's do it.
You've been training to do what?
I've been training to have a professional wrestling match in some form. Most likely the first one that really has an audience interacting and is really just not coached and straight up will be kind of at what the program calls a student showcase. They do it once a month. You probably get between 4 and 7 minutes to have a match. You get to kind of plan it out with your partner, whoever you're wrestling against beforehand. So that will most likely be the first match. I don't know if it'll come next week. Usually the last Friday of every month they do that student showcase, so that would line up with next Friday. I don't know if I'm ready. In some ways I feel ready, in some ways I don't. I think it depends on who I get matched up with. There's a little bit of intimidation when you're with some more experienced guys. It's this weird kind of paradox or contradiction, because the experienced guys will always tell you and I feel the same way, I'd rather you throw and hit me a little bit too hard than it looks bad. And so they're no, I want to get hit, don't pull the punches, be safe. Don't literally strike me in the eye socket, but throw it the way you're supposed to. And you can hit me. You can hit me pretty solid.
Okay.
But so you don't want to pull your punch and have him be mad and be this guy sucks. He doesn't know what he's doing because he's too new. But you also don't want to go in there with a guy. You never know if they're kind of that old school locker room leader type guy. And if you throw too stiff of a shot and they know you're new, be oh, this guy thinks he can step up to me. And then they come back and just boom, wailing chops on you, or they throw a stiff one back, and you're like, I don't know. I don't know how, if I'm throwing too hard or too soft. So I'd prefer to like have my first match be against one of the guys who kind of, we're all sort of around the same level and starting our training, but we'll see.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you taken a chop to the chest yet?
No, we haven't really, not anything like full on like practicing it really.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope to practice that. I want to be able to use that in my own move set and arsenal. And yeah, I mean, I'd be fine taking a chop. However, I did get some insane pop on a clothesline last night. Okay. So I went to training last night. I usually don't do Fridays, but I went to a Friday for the first time. We practiced just some clotheslines. Guys coming off the rope, duck, hit the ropes a few times just for conditioning. And then the coach would be like, all right, now you throw the line. So you know to kind of do it. And I had like a pretty big guy running, so I don't know if that helped, but man, the it was like louder than both of those pops. Like I thought I heard him, and I was like, oh shit,
okay,
because there's a bunch of more experienced people there, and I was like, oh no, but man, it clapped. So I think I got it pretty good, where just like the meat of your forearm and bicep just kind of hits flush on the guy's chest here safely, and I was like, damn,
like that clothesline from hell type.
Yeah,
clothesline.
It popped hard. I was surprised.
That's awesome.
I either did it wrong or really, really right, and I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's crazy. You just flipped. Now, has there been anything like throughout your training where, because you watch wrestling too on a fairly regular basis, is there anything that like has flipped your perspective, or is there anything where like, what am I trying to say? So like that you are more impressed by now that you've actually done a little bit of training and get in there?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's so much, but I think the thing for me that I now will probably notice more when I watch, and I am also just more mindful of how difficult it is calling the match. And I might have brought this up the first time, because even after, well, I think I only had gone to one training, so I probably didn't I probably didn't bring that up.
Yeah, I don't remember you talking about calling the match.
But like calling the match, and a lot of the sequencing in between your spots, because you might have some go-to moves like some kind of suplex or backbreaker or some kind of big slam, but there's kind of got to be some back and forth or some struggle in between. You can't just go big move to big move, who's like, once you get the guy down, how are you following up on that attack? And then how is he, flipping it back in his favor? And it seems like that's where you can really have stuff look bad, because that's when, you don't have your spots planned, and you're kind of like, who's about to throw an elbow, and when are we reversing this? And that's when you kind of have to call stuff on the fly, and I'm super intimidated by that. So really keeping it looking good and believable in between some of the larger moves, I think is probably the hardest thing to now for what I perceive. And so I'm definitely going to try and watch more of like how, like in between, like after a big move, what are the wrestlers doing? How is either one of the wrestlers staying on it and, working something until the guy gets up, tries to come back, and then he hits his next big move? Or how does he stay on it? The guy comes back, and that guy does get his big move, and now he's in control. So there's this kind of like there's this sort of in between stuff that is scary.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been training for about 40 days now. Yeah. What has been like your favorite part, if you had to pick one?
Ooh.
Favorite just kind of part where you've learned and you picked up on, or just like favorite specific moment?
Man, I think getting better at taking some of the bumps has been good, especially if you're like taking, back elbows or shoulder tackles or clotheslines off the ropes, because the way you get hit makes it easier to take that back bump. When you're just kind of standing there and you got to, when you're learning it and you go, and throw yourself back, it feels so weird. But having a guy like really throw some momentum and force into you, it just feels so natural. You kind of fly forward a little bit and fly back.
Okay.
And I would love to get some video so I can see if it looks as good as it feels. It probably
Yeah.
looks stupid.
We gotta get some video. Do they
I know.
Do they record the student showcases at all?
They do record the student showcases, and last night they were recording some of the students having like practice matches, and I was kind of helping ref because I was a little bit new, so I was the ref in there. Also, last Saturday was a really cool moment. So the wrestling group promotion that I trained with had like a pretty one of their bigger shows. They did one in Flint. It probably had over 1,000 people.
Okay.
And before the show, Rhino from WWE was there.
Rhino.
He taught like a small like seminar where everybody got paired up and you had like a short match while Rhino watched, and then he gave feedback and pointers.
Cool.
And then he was actually in the main event that night. And a couple
sweet.
guys from TNA that had trained or been a part of this group had a match too. But that was pretty cool to have sort of like a first kind of match in front of Rhino and have it not go so bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get too off topic, but it is WrestleMania weekend as we're recording this.
Yeah.
And that's hence the minimal setup with the one camera. I said I don't work hard on WrestleMania weekend. It's my one weekend to take off, but I still want to do the pod since you're over here. But I got to comment on WrestleMania because I thought about like the Rhino Detroit wrestling scene, Michigan wrestling. I was super bummed that the Motor City Machine Guns have been putting in some serious hard work the past several months on SmackDown, and the whole tag division was like revamped. And they had a match on SmackDown. Shenanigans happened, and they announced a triple threat TLC match for next week.
Next week, not at WrestleMania. Yeah, when I was reading how that went, because you had talked about it, and you're like, I think like I'm hoping something will happen in this title match on SmackDown, and all this will come out and book like a ladder match because maybe something a little bit more extreme is needed and stuff like that. And I'm reading down, I'm like, oh, Chris nailed it next week on SmackDown, and I heard the crowd kind of booed.
They did.
Did not enjoy that announcement.
Yeah, and then one point I've been seeing is like Triple H had that podcast interview with Andrew Scholes where he was talking about how like the internet opinions aren't real. What's real is like what happens at the live shows, the audience reaction.
Right.
Using Jey Uso as an example, like, yeah, there's all these haters online, but like he gets these crazy reactions, sells merch. Well, the argument is like, well, you heard live in that building that these fans, all of them want Motor City Machine Guns, Street Profits, and DIY, and multiple other tag teams could have that spot too to compete at WrestleMania. So I was just bummed.
Yeah. There's how many tag matches are there? There's the women's tag title match.
Yeah, Liv and Raquel versus Bailey
and Lyra
Valkyria, and then there's
there another one?
There's the Raw tag titles with War Raiders.
Oh
and
New Day.
New Day. That was and New Day deserves it because they've been floundering a little bit since the heel turn, but hopefully they capitalize and pick up the titles. But yeah, I was just bummed. There's however many matches and however many hours of WrestleMania. It's like you could shuffle some things around and create 12 minutes for these guys,
Right. Yeah, it doesn't seem overbooked where there's so many matches this year. I kind of feel like there's not as many as there usually is, but maybe that's just a weird perception. Yeah, I don't know. So that surprised me that's not in there.
Yeah, but to tie it back in, Randy Orton has a mystery opponent. I think it should be you. So let's get back to your wrestling journey and stuff.
I've got a flight to catch pretty soon.
Okay, that might be a teaser there for you. But so this is a weird question, but I was curious. So on the days where you're going to wrestling training that night, what's the feeling like? Are you like really excited and giddy? Are you able to kind of like compartmentalize, put it out of your mind? Or are you nervous? Are you like afraid? Like, do you talk yourself out of it?
That's a good question. I'm always kind of a little bit nervous because for better or worse, there's pros and cons to this, but it's not always like the same people there. Okay. Even if I go on the same night each week, just life comes up for people and they maybe don't make it. So, you've kind of start developing some like better relationships or friendships with some of the guys you see a bit more often, and where you're kind of feeling like you're at the same level. There's kind of that more collaborative training together
Mhm.
than when if you're new with like experienced people, you're just like trying not to fuck up.
Mm.
And that can be a little nerve-wracking. So I mean, usually I'm pretty excited. Um, it's, but I'm also, yeah, I'm usually excited, but I guess I never know what we might work on or what we might practice.
Mhm.
And so some of, in my mind, I can start thinking, oh, I hope it's not this because I don't feel like I'm very good at this, or things like that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I usually look forward to it. I don't end up thinking about it too much like while I'm at work, but yeah, I
Mhm.
basically have to pack like a gym or duffel bag ahead of time, and
Head right
just
there.
head right there, drop the pants in the old barn with the ring, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Sweet. So have you had any like brainstorming on character development? Do you have any ideas for characters, gimmicks, things like that?
Yeah, I did a lot of like thinking and trying to brainstorm and come up with some different ideas. I'm a little bit worried the idea I want to use is a bit too has too many layers or is too complicated, and it's like you are scripting out like a 6-year career. Like you don't need like this many different facets of your character that you could or couldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I think like I don't know if they're gonna say I want you to go out and play the face. I think your reactions or your size against this guy will make you a better face, or you should go out and be a heel because I don't know, you got a face that people want to punch. Um, so I kind of threw around. I thought of like some nicknames that I had when I was younger, and I thought
Okay.
of some things that I was interested in. And for me, I've always loved like dressing up for Halloween, and then I did work with like at a job where we had like kids. Kind of like a learning center for quite a few years. And like every week we had like a themed dress up day on Wednesday. And so I really enjoyed that. And it kind of amassed a lot of costume pieces and
Mm-hmm.
just like kind of playing characters and stuff. So part of what I was thinking is, man, it would be really cool to kind of have like a matador outfit. Cause I went to Spain a couple of years ago and Spain was
Sweet.
awesome. And then my parents went to Italy like a year ago, and I was like, oh, you got to get me like a cool like Venetian mask.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of like, I want to be either like a guy that has like some Spanish roots or Italian roots. And I was like, well, what if I'm just a guy that like, left the US and like went over to Europe and was like, this is where like the fine arts are, bullfighting,
Mm-hmm.
flamenco, opera, street performing in Venice and stuff like that. And so I think I kind of want my character to be this sort of to call up a probably forgotten wrestler, but
Mm.
maybe a little bit akin to like a Damian Sandow
Okay.
early on, like intellectual, like kind of views wrestling as like this high art form,
Mm.
and thinks that like everybody else is kind of like a crude Neanderthal buffoon. There's all these strong guys just grunting and bring the beauty and the art, like I did in bullfighting and other things like that, to the squared circle. Um, so that's kind of the character I'm going to pitch initially and see how it goes.
Mm.
Have a name for him. I wanted to kind of pick something that sounded Italian and Spanish, which is really stupid and probably makes no sense because who's named that? Um, and so I kind of threw around a lot of things, and eventually I kind of settled on, because I wanted to just have sort of like a city name, like a really cool like Spanish city or Italian city as like a first or a last name. I was like, people could probably see through that. Um,
Mm.
so I ended up coming up with using like Giovanni and going by Gio.
Okay.
And then last name, there's a city in Spain called Zaragoza, which
Okay.
I visited. I was like, that sounds cool as hell.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think that's again like too obvious. And so I started looking at some like literary references that had like good sounds to them that I knew, since I do some reading. I dabble in the books. And there's an older author. I think his name's Robert Chambers. I actually can't remember, but he kind of wrote some like very early horror stuff. And there was this kind of location, this like dream world or fictional world or like just kind of unknowable area called Carcosa.
Okay. That's
And
cool.
so I was like, that sounds close enough to Zaragoza. It's got like a bit of it definitely has like a European sound, like
Yeah.
in my opinion. And so I was like Geo Carcosa. And yeah, I think there's, again, like I said, I've thought of all these different facets where I could be like typical, just kind of like heel who's kind of haughty and arrogant about
Uh-huh.
this, different kind of face cheers if I ever became a face, because Geo is kind of the letters go
Yeah.
and really easy to chant as like two letters, G O,
Yeah.
go Geo or something like that. Um, then like the darker turn where using the author who kind of wrote Carcosa, he has a very famous character kind of referenced and brought up in a lot of media still. The King in Yellow
Okay.
is kind of like this terrifying cosmic being that's not understandable, and maybe having like that dark. You see a lot of wrestlers sometimes pay homage to some of their like favorite video game characters or
Yeah.
anime characters.
Mhm.
Having some kind of appearance or entrance that kind of takes on some of those different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's very thoughtful and clever. And a few thoughts that popped into my mind, like as you were describing this character, this gimmick, I can already visualize like how you would be in the ring, like very slick, very smooth, very like kind of light on your feet. And
Yeah,
it's
hopefully
like,
I can actually do that. Maybe they'll be
Yeah.
like, we'll give that to somebody else. You're kind of the plotting.
Yeah, they see you in the ring,
Idiot.
they're like, let's go with the brick paver or something. No, that's really cool. And then I thought like built in, European fan bases are known to be like pretty hardcore fans when they go perform over there, WWE specifically, but like you would already have like a built-in connection having your gimmick be from there.
Yeah.
So those are two thoughts that pop in my head. And then one other thought, when you do your mic work, are you going to try to go for like an accent, or are you going to go just like kind of like just well spoken?
I don't think accent, because, then you run into like, well, am I doing Italian? Am I doing Spanish if I lived in both of these countries? And maybe even I mentioned I've lived in some other more, because why just those two? But I guess why does anybody live anywhere?
Yeah.
Those two are just fine. But I was like, I'm a little worried it will come off too hokey if I try to do it. If I had learned either of those languages, maybe I would have that accent a bit more natural.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think there are some, ways to call out wrestlers where I might, take some words from Italian or from Spanish, like using the word for like idiot or buffoon or loser, something like that, one of those, and just
Okay.
that would have that, and then people, something simple where you can just throw the accent on a word or two, and you don't have
Yeah.
to be Kofi and get called out years later for why you dropped that Jamaican accent.
Yeah, weren't you Jamaican?
Yeah.
You know what? That's funny. You brought up Kofi or Triple H calling out Kofi, because I thought of Triple H because one of his first gimmicks was like Jean-Paul Levesque, and he spoke in a French accent. I think that might have been WCW days or like
Yeah.
very early WWF days. But yeah, that's fun. That's why I was curious about the accent.
Yeah.
How
I just don't think I could pull it off well enough. If I could, I'd probably do it, but I'm a little bit worried people will see through it. So
yeah.
yeah.
When you were talking about the thing in Flint that Rhino attended, did you get to interact with Rhino at all? Ask him questions?
I didn't ask him a question personally. I mean, there was a chance after. I think I would say there's probably about 20 of us. So we probably had about 9 to 10 matches, and he would, after you were done with your match, he'd stop and say, "I like this, do that," and then also like give more general advice and things like that. And then at the end, he asked about questions. I didn't really have any. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
His legs were just massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked like he could probably squat like 700 pounds, and he was just such a stout, stocky man.
Yeah, the way his build is, it's so unique.
It's very unique.
His
yeah.
arms, like when he's like, he could put his arms like straight down next to his sides, and I feel like they wouldn't even reach his waist. Like he's just like a tank. Like I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, it's an interesting body shape.
Yeah, he's got an interesting bod. We could go down that rabbit hole talking about wrestler bodies.
Sure, see that's another thing I'm a little worried about. 'Cause I have to pop that. I gotta make sure my first match, at least they're not like this guy, but then I've seen a couple like posts on social media where it's like, remember when Gunther and Akira Tozawa looked like this, and like you would never imagine Tozawa not being like very lean, but they had a picture of him compared to like Gunther in both their changes.
Okay.
Like the Gunther one, very obvious and really well toned out, but Tozawa would surprise you. You should look up what he looked like
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
I'm gonna Google it right now as we're talking.
Yeah. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he was just a larger, kind of chubby guy.
Okay.
I mean, not going Otis size,
Okay.
but you would look at him and be like, nah. And I don't know, maybe I got on the internet and
Bit of a chubster.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
like I said, maybe it was AI or something. They're like, who else could this Gunther post looks a little bit bare. We should throw in another wrestler. But why would you pick Tozawa? So I gotta imagine.
Wow. Yeah. You go to Google Images, you type in Tozawa before, and he's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Just you wouldn't necessarily call him a like fat guy,
Right.
but he's plump.
Yeah.
He's plump.
Absolutely.
And then the whole like ripped thing or like whatever wrestler body, there's been plenty of guys who weren't, John Cena jacked, like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. They, just
Yeah.
look like guys off the street, and they're two of the top performers ever.
Yeah, I'm not worried about like anything, but just like this being a little bit too out there. Really, the gut is the concern.
Yeah.
But that's the problem area. That's at least for me,
Yeah.
one
Well,
of the hardest areas to trim.
yeah, it's hard. Keep it. I say keep the gut. Don't even try it. And then chalk it up. Add it to the gimmick. Like
I was thinking that.
we eat in Italian.
I was
don't do the
gonna say like, if I got called out for it, be like, no, the reason the word like belting for like singing came about is from like the opera singers in Italy.
Yeah.
Because they have such powerful diaphragms. Not to do the It's Always Sunny bit.
Yeah.
But because, your diaphragm is kind of where you're breathing from, and you're breathing from like your chest and stuff. And it really, you kind of want to have that like a little bit built up gut size. And it's not because you're fat or anything or got too chubby there. I mean, mine is, but I can pretend that it's because I'm a great opera singer and then hit him with a big note.
That's pretty damn good.
I do it way louder. I mean,
You didn't even peek the mic. Here, let's try an opera singer. I'll move the mic away a little bit. Let's see what you got. Do you need to stand?
I wish I knew some notes. Oh, no.
Okay.
The Phantom of the Opera is there.
Dude, that's so good. Well, no, I'll clean that up later.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, if I ever have to like be really annoying as a heel, I was gonna try to watch. I was gonna try to watch like one of the classic like Italian operas that's considered like one of the most like best pieces of art ever created. It's like Don Giovanni. I know nothing about it. I don't know any of the songs, but if I could learn a few Italian, bars from that and just pester people opera singing Don Giovanni.
God, now I'm getting into this. So remember how Aiden English used to hit that note as a way to tell everybody? He'd tell everybody like him and Rusev are coming out like, I can't do it, but he would like hum something and people would be like, oh shit, he's coming. You could do something similar like that with someone's talking trash in the ring and you could go, hold on, or whatever. And
for sure.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But fits the character really well too.
Yeah.
You got some legs with this. I really like it.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm worried that, when you have something you're excited about, but you haven't like started on it, like if you're coming up with a story that you're going to write or a screenplay or anything or a sketch, you have all these ideas and you got to pick one eventually.
Yeah.
Of course, you can always write another episode or write a different sketch and use some of the ideas that got cut. But when you start telling somebody about that initial idea and you're like, well, it could be this or it could be that or it could be that, I'm worried when they go, okay, we need to start talking about gimmicks for you new guys. What do you want to do? I'm worried I'm going to just spew it all out and they're going to go, that's like 7 characters. What are you talking about? Just you're pick something else.
Yeah. Well, Mick Foley, you did 3. Why not? That's so good. When you came in the first time, you revealed some bruises from hitting the ropes. Has hitting the ropes gotten any easier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. You doing it more? Because I remember you said maybe when you were hitting them, you were favoring one side.
I think maybe I wasn't going, straight back there. Maybe we just practiced a lot more, or maybe it was just a, spot that you don't hit that often with anything, and it was pretty sensitive to any kind of impact or pressure there, and now you kind of get not calluses or anything, but just works kind of the muscle and the meat there. And it's like, no, yeah, this is fine. I'm not going to bruise anymore. But that's been fine. The only other time I kind of came away with something significant was like when we were first kind of learning like collar and elbow tie up, sort of like that initial grapple where guys lock up. One guy was just like really leaning that. So one hand goes behind your head, neck here. And so his elbow's kind of like pressing up.
Here,
into your chest.
can you show me? Here, I'm gonna put the mics like the.
So
well, probably should.
Okay. You'd have your left hand and my left hand would both come behind our heads.
Okay.
And then you'd kind of grab like this.
Okay.
But so he was kind of way up there with his like elbow into my collarbone and clavicle area, and I had like a big bruise.
Oh, so
for a couple days, he was just like driving that elbow in. I mean, he was a taller guy, so maybe he was a bit long there, but I was like, damn, that's sweet.
Yeah.
It's a good bruise.
Was he a newer guy?
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
We were both new, though. I mean, I like him. He's pretty cool. I was hoping to, wouldn't mind having a match with him.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Speaking of, I think he was the first guy that we practiced leapfrogs with.
Oh, sweet.
Like, so we practiced, throwing a guy off the ropes, duck a line. You do the drop down where you kind of fall on the mat and the guy kind of jumps over you. Do a drop down the other side, and then you're going to leapfrog over him twice. So that was kind of like a little practice drill we did. And he's like a tall guy.
Okay.
This guy's a pretty big dude. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", and I was like, oh,
dang. How, younger guy or our age? Okay.
Yeah, I think he's in graduate school.
Okay.
So he's probably mid to late 20s.
Cool.
But I was like, oh no, because there was some other shorter guys there. I was like, I feel comfortable leapfrogging them, so I was like, I'm gonna have to really jump here. And man, it felt really good though. But got the leapfrogs in, and I was like, oh, this is sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
If I could pay you a compliment, your arms are more defined than I've ever seen, like since I've known you.
Probably, yeah.
Because I remember, what was it, a couple years ago you were doing CrossFit and you look good, but even better than then, I'm like your forearms and your buys and your tries kind of popping like Mac style.
Yeah, yeah, like Mac.
Shredded Mac, not fat Mac.
Right. Thank you. No, I mean, I would say, and it might not even be wrestling. I made a bit more of an effort at the start, kind of in January. I felt like with CrossFit, there wasn't always enough focus throughout the week on chest and upper body. I mean, it's balanced and you kind of get all of it, but I was like, this is where I don't develop muscle as easily. Like leg, glutes, like I just have more strength there. My body's just built to be able to do heavier stuff there. And I've never had like a well-defined like chest or pecs. And I was like, let's see if we can get those. Yeah. So I've kind of gone to Planet Fitness on some days off or additional days and just kind of worked arms and chest to try and build that up. And then as, for wrestling, I've kind of heard the coaches say like, you really want to work on your back and your shoulders because that's where you're landing. If you've got more muscle there, it's going to be easier to just take bumps and land. So kind of pivoting towards that as well a little bit more and adding that in, and we'll just do legs at CrossFit and that should be fine.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. I would say in terms of muscle groups, like chest is my favorite to work. I always book my Mondays for chest day. Yeah. And if I have to put in another muscle group, it's like chest and tries or chest and whatever, chest and something else. Back for me, I mean, I work back the same amount as I work the chest. It's usually Tuesdays though, but I feel like back is hard because it's the one muscle group where you can't like see when you're working it. Like the other muscle groups, like I try to do like the mind muscle connection where I'm like really focusing on, like if I'm doing a chest press, like I put all my mental attention on the chest and like, okay, make sure I'm pushing with my chest and I can like see it. And then like same with your arms and your legs, you can usually see the muscle, but with the back, for whatever reason, I'll do these like, the flies or like the rows. And it's like, I can squeeze as much as possible, but I can't see it happening. So,
yeah. I feel similarly on back is kind of weird to train for me as well, at least kind of more early on, really trying to hit it. And I think it also, like when your other muscle groups feel sore, a day later and you go, okay, I got a good work there. If my back feels sore, I'm like, did I sleep wrong? Yeah. or did I actually work the muscles? I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. So speaking of soreness, do you find yourself the same amount of sore after wrestling training? Less sore, more sore, about the same?
I've not really run into too much soreness aside from, any just kind of if there was bruising from a lot of pressure in one thing, or, that first time hitting the ropes. Sometimes immediately after, as I'm like driving back, I can still feel some of the soreness lingering from, 20, 30 minutes ago on, bumps I took that weren't as clean or as smooth as they should be. Or, when we were practicing leapfrogs, I was running. A guy was supposed to leapfrog me. Kind of, we were running it. I got to the point where I was coming at him. He was supposed to leapfrog. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you got to jump. You got to leapfrog. And no, I was supposed to duck. And so he jumped and I realized, oh shit. And so I kind of stopped and caught him to make sure he was okay. But kind of took like a knee right to the nose.
Oh, okay.
Got me pretty good. That was a little bit sore and tender. And even maybe for about 4 or 5 days, even still a little bit, I can feel like it's still recovering. But it's, there are times where we do a little bit more like warm up and training and do some movements and strength stuff. But usually it's definitely not the same soreness as like a CrossFit if it's a particularly intense one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're like specifically targeting the muscle groups.
Yeah.
I didn't know like taking bumps, like falling on your back. I didn't know just like how much that would carry over into the
Yeah.
next day.
If you're hitting them right, you probably won't feel it too bad unless you're like your whole practice is taking bumps. If you're landing a lot on lower and middle of the back where there's less muscle there and it's just kind of pushing in on the organs and stuff, yeah, that might stay for a day or two.
Yeah. One question I just thought of: when you're wrestling, do you have your attire picked out, and where do you get wrestling attire?
I gotta ask. I gotta ask some of the more experienced guys and things like that. So, I'd probably wrestle in a pair of like black sweatpants like this, honestly. Because usually when I'm training, I do like, it's been cold, it's starting to get a little bit warmer, but I would have like a pair of shorts on, knee pads, and then the sweatpants over, and then I'll just stay in like a workout t-shirt. But I would assume for a match, if I don't have gear, anything specific, I'll do that, but just ditch the shirt and be topless, pop that shirt off, because you don't want to be, I feel like a guy in wrestling, unless you have like a like tank top, like a singlet or something, I feel like being in wrestling and wearing like a t-shirt is like the same as being the kid on the beach with the shirt on.
Oh, or in the pool. Yeah, that's what
at
I
the
thought
pool.
of. Yeah.
But I guess, Kevin Owens does it.
That's who I thought of. He's the only one I can think of that I don't think he's ever popped that shirt off.
Yeah.
And how because I don't think he works out gym wise, but I mean, his cardio's got to be crazy.
Yeah.
And he's got to be, he's flexible. He can do all sorts of, acrobatic moves. So he is one of a kind, man.
Yeah.
I've always thought about that. Like, if I were to get into it, what gear would I wear? I would have trouble with being one of just the trunks.
Yeah.
Like with like The Rock or The Miz. Like, I would probably go kind of like the AJ Styles. Yeah, AJ Styles mode with like the pants, maybe some knee pads, maybe some elbow pads, and then just, you go no shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll probably stick with tights because there's also a little bit more room for design and character.
Yeah.
If you just have the trunks, there's a lot less space if you're going to have things that are identifiable with your name or something that is part of your appearance and things like that. So the tights, especially for my complicated character, can have, the Venetian mask and bullfighter's cape and ridiculous crap all over it. I'd consider the trunks though. Just depends on how I'm looking, and if I check it out and stand there and go, oh yeah, great quads, this will look great. It'll distract from the upper body being not as peak. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, for sure. Or just rock the jorts like Cena.
I don't know if I'm not sure if I could do that one.
Yeah, I wonder if he's gonna wrestle tomorrow in jorts. Did he wrestle in jorts at Elimination Chamber? I'm trying to picture what his attire was.
I think so.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said now that he's healed, now he's a bad guy, he's not changing up.
Not changing nothing.
Not changing nothing.
It's the fans that changed.
Exactly.
He didn't change.
He's been for what do you say? For 25 years, I've been the victim of an abusive relationship. I'm liking it. I'm liking the Cena heel.
Yeah.
Who you got, Cody or?
Oh,
I know. Well, let Did you do your wrestling scorecard?
I
yet?
haven't filled it out yet.
Okay, so
I know I got time.
So we do wrestling scorecards for the big pay-per-views, and whoever wins gets to take the title until the next big pay-per-view.
Chris has been holding it for a while.
I think I've had it at least a year. I think I picked it up. Did I beat you last year at Mania?
At Mania, and you've had it though, yeah.
Yeah, and then I put it on the line, I think SummerSlam and Rumble.
You retained.
And I retained.
I think we tied in one of
We
them.
tied at the Rumble.
Oh my God.
And it's, when it's a draw.
The DQ finish. Title can't change hands. you
Yeah.
know?
So the big talk is, you got a rematch.
Yeah.
So it'll at least be me, you, Matt, Gil.
Nice.
I think Dan said he wants to fill out a scorecard too, even though he's not going to be here.
Yeah.
I think Joe and Steffes will also fill out one.
Oh, nice.
So we
I
got
hope the more the merrier. A little bit of a big ladder version or elimination here. 5 or 6 guys vying for that title.
Yeah. So I already got my scores locked in, so you won't sway me.
Yeah.
Cody or Cena, and what do you think the finish is going to be, and how is it going to unfold in the coming weeks or months?
Oh man, I think it's everything kind of just suggests like everybody's thinking it's the Cena heel turn. You're not gonna do this after all those years and with limited time left and have him not win the title here and get a little bit of that heel run. So it's just too hard for me. Like I can find ways, right, where I think Cody can win, but not without some really unpredictable and unlikely shenanigans. So I probably think Cena wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
And with obviously some type of heel assistance, either something he does that's, not textbook John Cena and something heel, or getting some help from, maybe the big man, the boss man. Not the big boss man.
The big boss man. Is he dead?
I don't think so. I think he's alive, right?
Okay.
Maybe not.
I don't know. A lot of them have come and gone. I know
Yeah.
They did the Hall of Fame last night, and just the number of just name drops throughout the thing. He's no longer with us. She's no longer with us. China and an earthquake and Kowalski and all these guys. I don't know. Just a sad profession where people pass away before their time. Don't get too into this.
No.
Wrestlers don't have a good track record.
Yeah.
I was talking to, I don't know if this story is too personal or not. No, I won't. I'll tell it when we wrap up.
Off the air.
Yeah, I don't need to put that out there. So you're going Cena. I also will go Cena. There's been all sorts of talk about like all the people getting involved. I would like to see The Rock because he was part of the heel turn.
Yes.
But if we're not getting the crazy shenanigans we got last year, I think the one person that makes the most sense to get involved is Ric Flair, because he is the current. He's tied with Cena, so he's got some skin in the game, and I think it would be interesting, whatever way you play it, shenanigans or not. You get Flair out there, ref gets knocked out. You got Flair with a chair. I hate rhyming on accident in the middle of a sentence. I hate that's a pet peeve. If we do pet peeves and recommendations, I hate accidentally rhyming. I hate the accidental rhyme.
Yeah.
He's got a chair, and he finds himself looking at Cena, and then looking at Cody, and then everyone like on the edge of the seat, like, is he gonna help Cena beat his own record, or is he gonna, he's got Dusty Rhodes ties. They kind of came up together. Is he gonna help Cody's, Dusty Rhodes kid? And however way you play it, I think that would be interesting. But I don't know. I mean, last year was the most fairy tale ending you could possibly have. And I think this year, if you can't top the, Cody finishing the story and everybody came and helped out, if you can't top it, which I don't think you can, I think you end WrestleMania on like a sad but interesting note. And that's John Cena beats him.
Yeah.
Maybe even clean. Who knows? But John Cena beats him, and Cody can either go away for a little while or he can get tangled up in something else. And then they got Backlash next month. So is it like are we doing the Cena versus Randy Orton?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting too.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. And I don't want to do any like night one things, because if I can get this up by tomorrow, at least it'll be like before Mania. But I'm
But,
not.
you know, you could look really smart if you're like, here's what I'm throwing out for the main event of night one, and people are like, whoa, he called it.
He called that.
But maybe he just watched it.
Yeah, maybe he watched
and he's
it.
lying to us about when this was recorded.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. Hey, here's a fun idea.
Oh.
Let's see what this says.
Okay, you got two of them.
I got two
You
of
should
them.
do both.
Well, so for the listener, I started a new gag on the show where I
Yeah.
have a hat filled with questions that I've never looked at, I've never seen.
That's what a question looks like. I've never seen a question before. I thought it was like an abstract concept, but it's a tiny slip of paper.
Yeah, it's a tiny slip of paper. Ooh, I like this one. I don't know how. It says, "What's one conspiracy theory that you actually think might be true?"
Oh man! Oh my god! So I used to love conspiracy theories. Probably around the time I was like, you know, 6th grade to like 9th grade, when
Yeah.
your mind is like, you're old enough to understand the world, and then there's this idea that what if there's all these things that everybody thought they understood but could be different. So, you know, I loved the simple stuff like aliens, and cryptids like Sasquatch, were ancient aliens, you know, the first few episodes. I'm like, this is, you know, I could see it and stuff like that. Is there a secret, you know, Nazi base in Antarctica still, and stuff like that.
Wasn't there a theory that a bunch of the Nazis fled to Argentina? Have you heard this
Well,
one?
some of them did, I think.
Oh, that's real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think there was like the conspiracy theory that Hitler didn't die and that he did escape to like Argentina.
Okay.
But I do know that I think several did get to like South America, and only decades later, through like an extradition process, finally got like tried in a court or something. At least like one or two of them that happened. I think that's where they finally located them, like in South America. I could be adding to misinformation, but I'm almost positive that's true though.
No, that's what we do here. Any idea why they chose Argentina? They just fled and found themselves there, or was there something specific about Argentina? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Europe probably wasn't an option,
Yeah.
and neither the U.S.
Yeah, no U.S.
So they're probably like, we got Africa or we got Argentina, and they said Argentina.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Well, who knows?
Everyone's a little too close to Europe too, so maybe we're like, this is really, you know,
Yeah.
none of these countries were involved. Let's head here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You ever get into like the moon landing conspiracy?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Mhm.
Not too much, but like I know about it, and I know
Yeah.
some of the like, you know, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't line up, and things like that. But that one, I guess whether it's real or fake doesn't like drive me wild to know, because I do find it strange that it seems like people and countries have had so few manned moon missions since then, but I know there has been additional ones than just the first one.
Mhm.
So even if that one's fake, unless the other ones are fake, like at least like sure, we just lied about how soon we did it. Like, it's
Yeah.
like lying about, it's like a girl having a fake ID going to a bar. Like
Right.
you're not really 21, you shouldn't be here, but once you're 21 later, if we find out you were here for like 3 years and you show up with your, it's my 21st birthday, like, oh well, I guess you got us, but you're here now.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh,
I still haven't answered the question, but you should
No.
go on. Yeah, I'm still thinking too.
Conspiracy theory. God, well, my brain's going in multiple directions. I'm gonna come back to the conspiracy theories, but when you talked about girls and fake IDs, Emily will often give me a book to read. Just like she thinks, like she'll be like, I think you'll like this book, and so that'll be my next book. And so it'll take me a while, but I've gotten into reading. I usually read for 30 minutes at the end of the day before bed. It's good.
Yeah.
So this book is called Birthday Girl, and
that's a fun title.
yeah, it's been good, but I'm realizing it's kind of like book porn. Like there's this like 19-year-old girl who's like really fixated on her ex-boyfriend's dad, who's like 37. And some of the talk is so funny because he's like, you get to your room and you stay there and I'm going to spank you. And I'm reading this, I'm like, is this what Emily wants me to do? Is this how she wants to be treated? And then I'm like, oh God, this is like, because my ex-wife got really into 50 Shades of Grey, and I always just like made fun of it. But I'm like, is this like, is she nudging me like she like is into this kind of stuff, and like should I get on board with it and like talk like, forceful and dirty? Like, women don't know what they want. Anyways, conspiracy theories.
That's a conspiracy theory. Do women know what they want?
I don't
Or
think
are they
so.
just making it up as they go?
I think trends come up and they talk with their friends and like, well, my husband, like, he did this to me. She's like, and then sometimes, oh, that's hot. I'm gonna hint to my husband. I think it's all ever flowing and changing. That's my take. Cause like they say like, I don't know if I want to go on this road, man. Yeah, no. They'll say shit like, I want to be treated with respect, and some. I'm not talking about my current marriage, but they're like, I want you to treat me with respect and say nice things to me. But then there's this other side of them where they want you to like hock a loogie on their butt cheeks while you're plowing them, dude. Like, I think they're just so confused. Like, they see like, this guy tying up women in 50 Shades of Grey. They're like, ooh, I like that. He's dangerous. And then, the whole like murder mystery podcast epidemic where it's like, do you want me to murder you? Louis C.K.
They want to be stalked, but they don't want to be stalked. Like, they
Yes.
want the idea of the danger, but never to be in real danger. And
Yes.
it's almost like kind of like I can't remember, like sort of like an induction therapy or whatever, where like, or if you have a phobia and you're terrified of something, like starting to introduce that to get over it, it's almost like, well, I'd like to at least be, pretend stalked or feel that sense of danger, but know that it's safe, because then you feel like, well, I'll never be in real danger or something. I don't know if there's that weird kind of like having this sense of danger and I don't know.
Yeah.
Means that like I am safe in a weird way,
Yeah. Louis C.K. has a perfect bit about this. I'm just thinking about this. He was telling a story. I don't remember if this was a bit in a stand-up or just a bit he told on like Conan, but he was like seeing a woman and they were out somewhere, or they're wrapping up their night, and he went for it, and they would like kiss and make out and like lay in bed, and she like push him up like, no, it's not the time. And then it would, some little bit of time would pass in the night, like 20 minutes, they would get to kissing again, back down on the bed again, and they would be like unbuttoning clothes, and she would push him off. No, I don't want you to do it. And then a third time, making out, and they find themselves on the bed, taking off clothes. No, I don't want you to do it. And then then they run into each other the next day, and she was like, why didn't we sleep together? He goes, well, what do you mean? We were there like 3 times and you pushed me off. And she's like, well, I wanted you to go for it. And he's like, okay, so you wanted me to rape you on the off chance that you were into it? Like, how psycho is that? That's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories, though. There were like the fun ones from when we were kids, like the whole like Marilyn Manson got 3 ribs taken out so he could blow himself. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
These rumors that like got around, no internet, like pre-internet rumors.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories.
The playground. That was the old school social media.
Yeah, dude.
Lunchroom and playground.
Yep. And then there was the famous, what was the guy's name with the gerbil in the ass? Do you remember? Richard Gere,
Yeah.
gerbil in the ass. Like, poor guy. I feel like there's a conspiracy around that. Like, was that a rumor? Like, did he like piss somebody off in like the really high up Hollywood rankings, aka Illuminati? That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And then they
all the Hollywood.
Hollywood
conspiracy theories.
It's super interesting.
And then something like Diddy happens, and then that's just gonna make people believe it even more. Like, oh no.
Yeah, that whole Illuminati thing's wild. Like, when someone first tried to introduce me to the Illuminati, I was like, you're crazy. Like, someone has way too much time on their hands. But ever since that seed was planted, this was like 2008, they were like, just notice how often musicians will do like the triangle and the eye thing, like the all-seeing eye and the triangle. And I'm like, that's just a coincidence to what you're showing me. But ever since then, I've noticed like how often they use like the color red to signify the devil, the triangle and the eye thing, the lyrics talking about like 666 Illuminati and stuff like this. It's just like, at the very least, if there is no Illuminati, and that's another thing, then these artists are doing a very good job of playing into the conspiracy and fueling that fire that it is some kind of secret thing that only the elite get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Diamond Dallas Page then was part of it?
I think he's Illuminati. I think this is part of it, like with the devil horn. So I think like Wolfpack is probably part of it.
There's people in every form of entertainment that that the symbol gets passed on to.
Yeah.
You know?
And then New World Order is one of their things.
Right.
That's the NWO. They're New
World
Order.
Yeah, So I feel like there's so many variations of like a secret shadow society or shadow group that really is pulling the strings. And I do think to some sense that has to be, there's some truth to that, because there are of course the recognizable multimillionaires, billionaires, people in positions of power, but you know, there are just as many people that have as much money that you've never heard of. And what kind of stuff can they do? They'd rather get what they want, or, you know, target society or their country or some law the way they are hoping for, and don't need, you know, the I guess I just completely blanked on any word. They don't need to be like a public figure. They don't need publicity to who they are. They, you know, if it gives them a better life, like I don't want to be famous. I just want to do whatever I want with my money, and you know, and it's you know, if you think about groups like mafia and mob members, Japan Yakuza, and all the different kinds of like criminal undergrounds. I mean, that's a smaller, usually more localized version of what we're talking about for like a secret society that controls the world. So if it's possible on a small scale, you know, people working underground and out of sight to affect people's lives and, you know, take out judges or, you know, get crooked cops on there, you know, is it believable at a higher level? And, you know, sure. And so whether there's like a secret society group that really is successful and influential and wouldn't have like, I guess, an antithesis group that might form up and like counter all of their moves. I definitely think that can exist. I just don't know how successful they really are necessarily. And you can never really prove it.
Yeah. You can't prove it. I'm sure if there is, if this Illuminati or, you know, BlackRock or any of these, like if there exists and they're pulling the strings, like I'm sure they don't want to be in the spotlight. Like they're kind of like if you think of all the celebrities as like the puppets, they're the ones doing the strings with the hands, like making, you know, being influential through these voices. And it's like, who doesn't want to be famous or who didn't have dreams of being famous growing up? So
it's the same thing as, you know, promoted material for YouTubers and, you know, or influencers and TikTokers and stuff like that. Like, do you really like this product, or is somebody paying you a bunch of money to sell it, and they see that, oh wow, I can get, or even not products but just ideas, notions that this is a good thing for society, or I can't, you know, we have to be pro this or free them, or, you know, dicks out for Harambe, you know, who's the big monkey advocate with billions of dollars that's like, I want Planet of the Apes to happen. We gotta get justice for Harambe.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of product placement, I usually throw in an ad right here, but we do recommendations. This podcast is brought to you by two sponsors. The first one is Gade Nutrition, GADE Nutrition. They have a boatload of supplements on their website, link in the description. I typically use their quercetin, zinc, vitamin D3 complex. It helps me not get sick, basically. That's all it does. And the other one is NutriCost. NutriCost is also a supplement company. I use them for casein protein and beta-alanine. They have a ton of products on their website. Link in the description. If you use the promo code that's listed there, I don't remember them offhand, but use that subscription code and you get like a 10% discount. And I think through the end of April, NutriCost is doing like 35%. So go get a discount and whatever.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah,
I need to bulk up and, you know, get the body ready for a match with a shirt off or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm gonna be Kevin Owens out there. Like,
flex that out.
Just keep the shirt on.
Get that Batista chest, and not the Kofi chest.
See, I think that's the thing. I think like my gut isn't that bad, but again, I've never had like a very well-defined chest or developed chest.
Mhm.
Maybe because I never focused on it, but I just feel like upper body is not naturally where a lot of my muscle goes. So I think once you get like if you have pecs, even if your gut comes out a little, your pecs still go further, a little bit more definition,
Mm.
and like you can like we were just watching some of NXT and like Femi's not like sitting there like super thin gut,
Mhm.
but he's just so big
Right.
and chest defined that it just looks fine. Nobody's like that guy's out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
So I just that's why I was like I gotta hit the chest more.
Yeah, chest benching, incline, flat, decline, do some chest flies, crank out push-ups as a burnout. Get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I want to talk. I don't have like, I don't have a Triple H chest. Remember how his pecs were? His pecs, like, they kind of transformed throughout the years. But there was a period of time where they were like super puffed out, but they were like cone shaped. Like rather than like a horseshoe shaped. His were
you
kind
know
of
what I can
sharper at the
see
bottom.
it. I can see it. I know what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he never? I don't think he ever tore any pec or anything. I knew he had the big
Nah.
quad injury,
Yeah,
but
the
I didn't know if that was from like a
quad.
surgery and there was any like.
No, I think his pecs were intact for the most part.
Yeah.
But I think some years there was like the 01 to 02 Triple H body. He was just a tank. He was so jacked. And man, I want to know what he was on. Like, yeah, what kind of performance enhancers he was taking. He was just massive. Did you watch any of the Hall of Fame? Any of the clips?
No, not really. I haven't seen any.
Yeah, it was all right. His speech was great. It was a little long-winded. He told these stories about the click. I thought those went a little long, but he did a good job of thanking everybody who's played a part in his career. That was pretty good. It was cool. CM Punk inducting Bret Hart and Austin for their match at WrestleMania 13.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Trying to think of anything else notable. They inducted Earthquake and Typhoon, natural disasters. Earthquake has passed away, so it's just Typhoon. I think he did a pretty good tribute for Earthquake. Who else went? Oh, this was cool. DDP inducted Lex Luger.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know there was some talk of like they're gonna have Sting do it.
Yeah, Sting wasn't there.
Yeah.
But what's cool is, I don't know if you've been following this, but you know how DDP has worked to rehab a bunch of other wrestlers? Well, Lex Luger is wheelchair bound. And in the months leading up to Mania, he's been working at DDP, did his whole speech standing up.
Oh,
Got
wow.
up, walked to the thing, and did it standing up.
What's the like injury that's had him in a wheelchair?
Yeah, so it's a weird story. They were just like on a plane, and I don't remember if he dropped something or what, but he just like bent down and turned to get something, and snap, something happened where it just paralyzed him.
That's terrifying. That's one of those
So
things
scary.
that like when you hear that story or see like a freak injury like that, you just you suddenly realize like how fragile your own body is, and you're like, I'm terrified of doing anything, and you kind of just like hide in your bed for the next 2 or 3 days, like I probably shouldn't go out and do anything physical.
Yeah, dude. Man, if it can happen to a guy that's in that good of shape, or maybe he was too buffed up, or maybe he was on too many performance enhancers and left the rest of his body fragile. I don't know. I don't, want to speculate on something like that, but yeah, it was really cool to see. And I'm trying to think of what else went down. Oh, there was one part that was kind of funny. It's making me laugh. Triple H, as he was thanking everybody, I don't know if he did it intentionally or if it was on purpose, but he was like thanking his family. He was like, Steph, love of my life, whatever. And he had his 3 daughters there. And he goes, Aurora, I told you, you've been bugging me all day to make sure I mentioned you in my speech. So here we go. I'm mentioning you. And then he took this long pause. I'm like, did he forget his other 2 daughters' names? That's literally what it seemed like. Yeah. And then he just moved on. Didn't mention his other 2 daughters. So I'm like, does he not know who his 2 other daughters are? It's really funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, conspiracy theories. Another one that I would really like to know about, because it's probably had more conspiracy theories than anything, is just like the whole 9/11 thing. If you ever gone down that rabbit hole, there's the whole like the third tower collapsed, and the third tower contained a bunch of vital financial information, and trillions of dollars were lost that day, but they couldn't pinpoint it because the building crumbled, and then the jet fuel not burning the whole
right, can't burn through
beams.
steel beams and things like that. Yeah, I remember hearing about a lot of those, but to me, yeah, I guess I was like, I don't know if that would change
Mm-hmm.
too much my perception on things. I already don't trust governments anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if this was a government conspiracy, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Now I feel the same way about those guys I already do.
I know. It's just like one of those things. Like I kind of just want to know. Like I
Yeah.
want to know what's happening. Here's a good example. So I feel like I have, in a way, I got like red pilled a little bit. And red pilled is when like I felt like I got the wool pulled over, like, and I realized that the media just bold-faced lies. And here was my one example of that, where I just like had this thing where I'm like, oh, if they're lying about that, they're lying about everything. And what it was during COVID, and Joe Rogan, love him or hate him, I would consider myself a fan, even though there's a ton of things he does that just like piss me off, and I can't listen to him that much anymore. But I would say I like his podcast. But here's what happened. So he was very outspoken. He had a bunch of people on that talked about COVID and just like the precautions that were put in place and like the vaccine and stuff. So Joe Rogan, he got COVID, and he posted this video on Instagram, and he said, sorry guys, I got to cancel my Florida shows this weekend. I got COVID. I went to my doctor. He gave me this, and that, and I'm already starting to feel better. Whatever. And that was it. He just announced that he got COVID. He's recovering. He had to cancel shows. Well, CNN took that video that he posted, put like yellow filters over it to make him look more sick, and reported conspiracy, like something Joe Rogan takes horse dewormer for COVID. And I read that, I'm like, how do you spin it like that? Like, here's a guy who, like, okay, he didn't get the vaccine for his own personal reasons, sure. He said his doctor prescribed him with these things, one of them being ivermectin, which got so blown out of proportion. But ivermectin, like, literally won Pulitzer Prizes, has been given to billions of people around the world for infection and things like that. And they spun it in a way to make him look crazy. And all he did was like say like these things. They didn't even focus on the fact that like this guy got better in like 2 days from COVID because he did all these protocols. So I looked at that and I'm like, whoa, how far they will go to take down this guy who's just doing a video. And ever since then, like, anytime the media is like calling someone crazy or a whack job, I start to like get curious. I'm like, what's their motivation? Like, what's behind? Like, what agenda are they pushing to try to take down this figure? And I don't know. That was kind of like my whole, like, I don't want to call it a conspiracy per se, but just when I think conspiracy, I think that whole thing. And my realization at that time was just like, whoa, the news, both sides, Fox News, super far right, and CNN, super far left, both of them, they'll fucking lie their asses off. And it's sad because there are millions of people in this country who don't know that, who don't know that they can be just bold-faced lied to by the news. And that for me was like a big moment where, I mean, just something silly like Joe Rogan getting COVID really opened my eyes to like, whoa, you know, we're told to think a certain way about these wars that are happening overseas, like the Gaza thing, the Ukraine, the Russia. We're told to think a certain way about so much shit. And it's like, well, who's telling the news to say this about that thing? You know?
Yeah. No, I find myself, frustrated often, one, with just news. And usually I'll kind of see like, okay, what's the kind of big topic here, and then I'll usually just come to my own opinion and not even read further into an article or listen to anything, because I'm like, I don't know how this is being framed, and I'd rather just make up my own story, which is weird. So I'm also frustrated because, like, as we talk about conspiracy theories, one thing that I always find, like, really strange about conspiracy theorists, like people really deep in the rabbit hole on some things, is they're like, you can't trust anything these people say. This is how they want to frame it. And I'm like, who are you getting? Your conspiracy theory information is coming from some guy with a YouTube channel. What is their credibility? It's like, I don't understand why this one person that somehow, has like more credibility than anything else. That's like always strange to me, where like conspiracy theorists are like, you can't trust this. And it's like, what do you know about the person you're getting the conspiracy theory information from? This guy probably lives out in the woods somewhere and like cooks possum for dinner every night.
Right.
But so I find myself though sometimes feeling like, I'd like to think there's like a delineation between like being a conspiracy theorist and being a skeptic. Although I don't necessarily feel like positive calling myself skeptical either. But I find myself always very skeptical of anything that's definitely caught on as like a trend, like a news topic or a movement that somehow seems to be trendy. I just find that I think where it starts from is probably the people that were really started whatever movement or really have feelings about something probably are genuine. But I think a lot of times those take off and become this sign of clout or this sign of identity. I always thought it was fucking stupid for people to put like little things in their profile pictures for any cause or movement or drop any like saying, because I was like, it was really just kind of trying to get likes. It almost wasn't about that. You might agree with it, but if you agree with it, you can do something a lot better than just like putting a small little color flag in your profile picture. And I almost feel that's distasteful.
Yeah.
And so like, there are some like terms that people still say, or some things and movements where they might have a slogan or a motto that they say that I see and I hear, and I immediately I think a little bit less of the person. I think like, I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you remember the whole like silence is violence thing? Like there was a lot of tension going on.
I don't remember that specific saying, but
yeah, I remember. I don't know. There was when the whole like riots were happening summer 2020 with the George Floyd thing.
Oh.
And if you're not speaking up about all the racism that's going on around you,
you're part of the problem.
You're part of the problem.
I think that happened with like the Me Too stuff too.
The Me Too, the silence is violence, and it's, can I be just an ally but not shout from the rooftops? Because like, here's another thing. I feel like racism, for the most part, is something that is like, it's like the media screaming into a megaphone, racism is a big problem. Racism is a big problem. Racism is a big problem. But like in my day-to-day, when I'm interacting with any other races, which I do every single day, there's no problem there. Like, and I'm sure it's true for like 98% of people. And then something happens and it goes online and it's like holding up a magnifying glass, be like, see, everybody's racist. And I'm like, 99% of them are just, percent of us are just trying to do our best in life. And we're not thinking about this. Like, I got way bigger fish to fry than being mad at a different race for being a different race.
Yeah.
Are you
I have
kidding
more
me?
stressful things in my life to put too much energy into that.
Yeah. Yes. And then there's like, they don't leave a lot of room for nuance. Like with the Black Lives Matter thing, like I felt like I was a 100% ally, total 100% ally. And then they're like, I think there was a part where they, the whole Jussie Smollett thing, Jussie Smollett, how he faked that crime. And I think the movement said, if you don't support Jussie Smollett, then get out. We don't want you. And I'm like, well, now you're making it really hard for me, because I think this is an isolated incident where this guy's kind of fucked up in the head and he faked this thing because he wanted to get more famous. I'm sorry. I still like, yeah, I still am like, racism sucks, but like that guy is not helping your cause.
Yeah.
And I feel like there doesn't leave much room for nuance when you make it so you got to think this way to be on this team. And if you stray a fraction of a percent, we don't want you on our team.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that interest groups, whether that be for politics or for a social cause or for even just a fan of a certain musician or artist or actor, it's almost so much harder that they will ever admit, maybe this was wrong or this was bad. And it seems simple, and I get it. There's been times when I won't like give in and admit I'm wrong on things, but they double down. And the group is always able to reframe and be like, I don't know if this was brought up, I'm just guessing. But if I were trying to advocate, be like, no, you still have to support this guy. Be like, it might have been fake, but he was just bringing a light that like, this is what people are facing day to day. This might not have been real, but this is an example of what is real. And this brought awareness and stuff like that. And people that are so firmly a little bit brainwashed, in my opinion, I feel they're just, because if you're not thinking logically, if you're just going to be irrational about everything, to me, that's borderline just being brainwashed by an idea. And I think when you're always going to reframe somebody's things that don't align with your values and be like, no, it does, this still works. That's just such a bummer to me. And yeah.
Yeah, you know what you said. This is actually going to tie back into wrestling.
Okay.
But when you talk about like just basically people not being able to separate themselves from an idea or a movement or anything like that. Well, the first thing that I thought of was just like, I can be that way with like Eminem music, but even I can admit that Revival sucked. His whatever album that sucked. So like you got to be able to separate. But anyways, what I thought about was pro wrestling. I can be very. Because I find it as like part of my identity, like being a wrestling fan. I love it. And literally this past week on Thursday, I had the thing where I brought it up and I had a lady. She goes, that stuff's fake, right? And the wrestling is fake thing.
Well, at least that was her thing and not like, that stuff's for degenerates.
Yes. And
slightly better, I guess, but it's also sad that she has to ask you.
I know. So here's the whole scenario, though.
You love this question. I bet. Oh,
I know. I get hung up on this one. So here's my just kind of. I'm gonna break this down. So this lady, she can be a little abrasive. She's whatever. She's part of my life. She's asked me the same question last year. So you're at this point, I don't feel like she's doing it from a place of curiosity. Like, wait, I heard, is that true that
she's
on her pedestal?
She's kind of yucking on your enjoyment there.
Yes. So this is a PSA to any wrestling fan who despises answering this question. Because for me, I do get a little emotional charge when I have to feel like I defend it. So I think this is how I'm going to do it from now on. Somebody says, isn't wrestling fake? Here's the question you retort with. Are you just giving me a hard time? Or do you want me to actually explain it to you? Because then it's up to them. Yeah. Yes, then it's up to them. If they want to be like, oh, I was just giving you shit. And be like, okay, haha, that's fine. Whatever. Come up with a funnier thing.
Yeah.
But then that's fine. But then it separates and it prevents them from feeling like they're on their high horse. Because like I could take a joke, like if you're just giving me a hard time, fuck you, like, and then I could send them a meme of like one of those things where it's like, if wrestling's fake, explain this, and it's a guy like putting a spell on somebody. It's like
it's the Cobra.
Yes, it's a Cobra, that kind of shit. It's like that's funny, but then if they're like, no, I'm actually curious, is it fake? Then you can get into the whole. What we do is like, well, it's predetermined and it's scripted in the way that any of your favorite TV shows or movies are, scripted. But the thing is, the athleticism the things they're doing in the ring with the moves and the bumps, like it actually physically hurts. And I would say more injuries come from pro wrestling than like any other sport. And not only do they have to do the athletic stuff that they do in every sport, but think of it like this. When you excel to a level of like a LeBron James, a Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, or anybody like that, you kind of have to start working on your speaking chops because you're doing press game conferences.
Yeah.
You're the one they come to. Hey, you guys kind of struggle in the third quarter. What do you think? Well, we got to be a team. You know, you got to work on stuff like that. But take that to a different level because not only that, they have to get an audience to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, it's predetermined. Like they know who's going to win the fight before they go into it. But the level of it being predetermined hinges on their ability to connect with the crowd and sell merchandise because it's a business. So if you go out there and you're not connecting with anyone, no one's going to buy your shit and you're not going to be around for a while. But if you get a guy like a Hulk Hogan who everyone buys into, if you get a guy like Stone Cold who everyone buys into, John Cena, so real, you can tell me what that means, you know?
Yeah.
It's fucking real to me, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I remember that question and, you know, when I was, like, younger and, you know, or when, you know, girls in whatever grade we were in would be like, it's fake, you guys are stupid. Like, and I think...
So are your tits, Sally.
I think just, like, I got over that, like that question, it bothers me that somebody is asking it 90% of the time rhetorically because they're trying to, like, put down that, because no grown adult is truly, I won't say no grown adult. The grown adults that ask you that question know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
There are grown adults that buy into it a little too much. I think they still know it, the diehard fans. So I'm not going to say there's nobody that doesn't know it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a willful, I think in some ways that's like a voluntary blindness and wanting to believe in it and buy into it in the same way that people love going to Comic-Cons and Star Wars cons and buying into and believing these characters and their tattoos and their lives and parts of their identity are based around just made up characters, just make believe stories and people that they connected with and that they realized like, I like this character's journey, or I like what they represent, or I like their look or their personality or their attitude. So, you know, it's so to me, it's like the same where like, and I'm sure people that are fans of other media get that question, like not, you know, it's fake because that's only like an easy question for wrestling. And that's how, you know, they're trying to dig it. But like, if you're into like Star Wars, be like, oh, you have a Star Wars tattoo? Or like, you have a lot of Star Wars stuff. Yeah. Or like any other, you know, Pokemon's like a game for kids, right? It happens a lot. I think it happens a lot with like Nintendo games. That's kind of the question that comes up to kind of bring in some video game itch, since I'm a big video game fan. But people that are maybe still fans of Pokemon or like Mario games or anime, I think a lot of times they get questions that are like, you know, this is kind of for kids, right?
Yeah.
Or like any animated show, like if you're a fan of SpongeBob, still as an adult, you know, you get those questions, and it's just people that, you know, can't accept that people find. It's usually people that are bitter and don't have things that they enjoy because they can't understand how somebody else can enjoy something.
That's a really good, dude. That's a really good point, because I'm thinking about it, because I don't understand anime. That was never something I got into.
Yeah,
but I think the difference is, I think that question, wrestling's fake, right? That says more about them than it says about you, because like, even though I don't understand anime, I feel like, is wrestling fake? That question is meant to demean. And it's like, why would your first reaction be to demean? Like, if someone tells me they're a fan of anime, I'm not the type of person to be like, really? Why? That's dumb. I'm curious. Like, why would your
what
first...
shows? What anime? Like, was there a specific one you like? Or like,
yeah. What makes you get into it?
That'd be my first question too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like, it's just a difference in personality. It's like, I could, you know, it could be anything that I've never been a fan of.
Don't like personally, or just don't have the experience with.
Yeah. For the most part. Now, if somebody tells me they're a big like Lil Yachty fan or like Lil Uzi Vert, I might be kind of a dick. Okay, I'm backtracking on my whole argument.
No, it's. I mean, I think we all have those. We all have those things, but they're pretty. I would say, and maybe it's because we're the type of person
Yeah.
that is curious about stuff and likes learning and wants to know why people are fascinated with things. But yeah, I mean, there are times when somebody's like, I like this. And I'm like, man, I got to try my best to just either like address it, but like not go further into it because I do have an opinion is usually, you know, how I got to do it. Or if I don't know anything about it and then I watch it, I'm kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is kind of bad. It's, but yeah, I mean, I know there are things I liked when I was younger that are cringy or like low quality and just like not good music or not good movies. And I think you still kind of have a soft spot for them if you don't even still like them against popular opinion.
Yeah.
So when I see like what other people like, especially people that are younger than myself, you know, I just go, okay, you know, this may have played an important role at a pivotal maturing time in their lives. And a lot of those bands or kinds of music, that's, you know, that's kind of why like 90s music or the emo nights come back because, yeah, it's not popular now and nobody's listening to it, but it's kind of that nostalgia hit. It was this seminal time in your life when you were coming to be an adult or understand what things were about and you were into wrestling or you were into My Chemical Romance and getting to kind of revisit, you know, how you could experience the world and what you thought about when you were younger is, I think it should be done at least to some extent.
Yeah. You brought up bands. That's you've told me about the Deer Hunter band before. That's your favorite band, right?
It is my favorite band.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're great. But yep, it's a t-shirt from the Deer Hunter. I saw them in Cleveland.
They got a triangle. They're Illuminati.
They do.
Oh,
they might be.
Son of a bitch.
I saw them in Cleveland back in October. I was going to see them in Detroit, but I had to go to my brother's, well, I guess my niece, but my brother's daughter, so my niece, is baptism.
Oh, cool.
So luckily, they played the next night in Cleveland, so I still got to see them.
Oh, sweet.
And I did go to a show on Tuesday of this week at St. Andrew's Hall in Detroit. I almost wore that t-shirt, but this one felt softer. It was a band called Half Alive.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
St. Andrews, you just go by yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, baptism. What is it? We got my son baptized. He was maybe 9 months. He slept through the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
So I've always wondered, I'm like, did it work? If he was out and unconscious for it, like, does that still count? Or is it like a subconscious thing? Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts there? Is baptism work on a sleeping person?
So the conspiracy theory is,
if
you're baptized while you're sleeping. No, I'm just. No, it definitely still counts, right?
Yeah.
I feel because like from my rusty memory of
Did you get baptized?
going to private schools or Catholic schools, I did.
Okay.
You know, the baptism is kind of your involuntary induction into Christianity or Catholic or whatever denomination, religion, and you can be asleep, you can be screaming, your baby's fingers can accidentally do like devil horns, and it's fine. Like the priest is just gonna be like, "Oh, that was a weird one."
Yeah.
But like confirmation then is like you then reaffirming kind of like your baptism.
Yeah.
From what I remember, so
Yeah.
that's when you get the choice, and you can be like, "Yeah, I'm confirming
Yeah.
the baptism, or I'm not." And I'm not doing the next step.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was raised Lutheran, which is
okay.
very similar to Catholic.
Yeah.
And I remember the confirmation thing, but I don't remember if I got baptized.
Yeah.
Let me look. Let me ask: do they do baptism in
interesting.
Lutheran? Because I know there's like a few subtle differences.
Yeah. For sure.
Let's see.
I'm
Okay.
not sure if any Christian denominations don't do baptisms. It's possible, but
Yeah, it looks like they do.
Okay.
So I was baptized. I got baptized, so I am one with the Holy Spirit.
holy man, I am one with the Jesus Christ.
One with the Jesus Christ. Chris D'Elia has one of my favorite bits about Christianity. You ever see that one? We could watch
I
it
don't know
after
if I've
this.
seen it.
He's like, he just talks about how creepy church is. He's like, hey, go, believe what you want. But church is creepy, dude. And then he just gives a bunch of examples of what goes down at church that's like creepy, and he's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's something else.
Something I can't believe I forgot to tell you. This was at indoor volleyball, so I go to that every once in a while. But a guy was
Where's
like,
that?
like Madison Heights. There's like an indoor. It's like called like 5-star sports or
Okay.
2-star sports. There's like I don't know how many stars.
Five-star
It's kind of like an indoor
spots,
like
frog splash.
just multi-purpose sports complex. So I've got like little batting things for like teams to
Okay.
practice. They've got like turf, so you can have like indoor soccer stuff and things like that.
Cool.
So I don't know. There are some people that I've met through the last couple summers that are into volleyball, or maybe I don't know why just volleyball, but agree and speak with the person, like rent it out on a certain night, so people just come and pay and hang out. But one guy was like, you look like who am I? What's that guy? You kind of look like you might not know him. And he said Chris D'Elia.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, I do know him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was only the hair,
Okay.
but yeah,
Could be.
I thought of you in that moment.
Yeah, that's so funny. I guess maybe it's the hair and,
Yeah.
and the facial hair now. I always thought it was the dude from Saturday Night Live.
Mikey Day.
Mikey Day. I always thought the mannerisms,
Yeah.
the sound of the voice, and facial expressions was Mikey Day all day. Craig Warner told you that too one time, didn't he?
Did he? Maybe he might have. Yeah.
Thought he did. Maybe not. Maybe I'm getting my wires crossed. But
No, it
yeah,
could be.
Mikey Day, I always thought you're right. So that's two comics. That's two pretty good people to compare to.
That's true. I got to see if I can find this one wrestler that the guy who runs Pure Pro Wrestling said, like, dude, when you walked in, I thought you were my buddy, and his name is also Matt, and I was like, are you guys messing? Is he messing with me?
Really?
Yeah, and his wrestler name is also like a very Italian thing.
Matt Cardona?
It's Vinny Da Vinci.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he showed me a picture of him, and I was like, oh, I can see it. And then the coach would like maybe take a picture with him so he could send it to his buddy Vinny Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a Vinny Da Vinci like rapper or musician,
Okay.
so I don't know if I'll. Oh, he's like way buffer there. I think it's only with the full beard, but he's bald. Wait, is there a guy named? Oh, that's Giovanni Vinci. They think I'm doing that, but
Okay.
I think he might have showed me this picture.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that like the more I looked at it, I was like, no, I can definitely see it now.
I can see that too. Okay.
I don't know if
Yeah, I definitely see it for
Yeah.
sure, dude. Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah.
What was your Geo what?
Geo Carcosa.
Geo Carcosa. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Geo Carcosa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, look out for Geo Carcosa debuting in
I might have a different. They might say no. Get a better name.
Yeah. Well, if they do you got any backups even plotting?
Ooh,
What did we talk about the one because the mediator? I was trying to have something come up with that, but I thought of I was like Pellegrini, where you're just like $1 million man, like you're greedy. Pellegrini, where you're just like a greasy, slick, oily kind of guy.
So my 5th grade teacher gave me the nickname Pelagroso, and
Okay.
I thought it was just
Pelagroso.
because it had like grosso in there. I didn't know Spanish, but it means like dangerous. I think we
Danger.
talked about that. You're like, you could maybe be a
Yeah.
luchador with that,
Yeah.
because it would just be. I mean, you just have to go by my full real name to
Uh-huh.
keep Pelagroso. Otherwise, you can't just like throw it in there. Like, why is this guy? Wait, why is Matt Crawford Pelagroso? Why is that his nickname? I forgot that I did have a couple different, like if I had to be super generic and not have a character, I thought of a couple sort of gimmicks or just facets. There are a couple guys that have some fun like little nicknames. Like one guy's called like the Territory.
Okay.
He's like, and so it's like it comes with the territory.
Ah.
Because I didn't get it when I first saw the Territory. I was like, that's weird.
Uh-huh.
But I love that one. Somebody's called like the Absolute Fact or something. Kind of just
Okay.
like something you can say and also like a nickname.
Absolute fact. All right.
I was driving the other day and I just thought of like In Demand or High Demand as like a nickname. But before that, the only reason I don't think it'll go the way I want is because it would probably end up being a bit more of like a Logan Paul type character.
Mhm.
But I came up with the name the Sinfluencer,
Okay.
like influencer, but
Yeah.
sin and like evil. And I was like, I'd rather it be more of like a Karrion Cross type guy who's not like, I'm not a heel influencer.
Yes.
I'm like just a guy that wants you to do bad stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm not on social media.
Yeah.
So I was, throwing that around as a facet for Gio Carcosa. If he never gets to go truly deep heel King in Yellow
Yeah.
version, he could be this influencer for a little while.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can I tell a quick funny story?
Yeah, please.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We can go up until WrestleMania starts.
Yeah. Well, let's cut 2 hours max, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're good, yeah.
But so I was at a meeting today. So on Thursday, I celebrated 12 years of continuous sobriety.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I was at a meeting.
yeah.
Thank you very much. And I was at a meeting today, and there's this thing they do as they're opening the meeting around Metro Detroit, Michigan. Usually the meetings go like this: like everyone gets in a table. The tables, usually range from 6 to 10 people in little circles. So there's, it's a big meeting, so there's maybe 10 different tables at this meeting. Somebody starts the meeting. It's a chairperson. They read off a sheet. We do some readings. We do announcements. And then we celebrate birthdays, sobriety anniversaries. And they usually check the box, see if anybody's name's in there, whatever. And then they say, is anybody here celebrating a sobriety anniversary? And so I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'm celebrating 12 years. And I get up. Everyone gives you a round of applause. It's very nice. And then ultimately, they always ask you the same question. They always say, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
How did you celebrate 1 month, 2 month, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, whatever? And so then you do a little spiel. And so I got up, I'm wearing my Ultimate Warrior shirt, and I go, well, what's funny, it was making me laugh before this, but as a side note, I'm a huge professional wrestling fan, and I gauge it. Got a couple of chuckles. So
All right, nice.
So I'm like, okay. So I go, all right. And so as a professional wrestling fan, this weekend, it's WrestleMania weekend. And if you don't know what that is, it's like just our big holiday, it's like our Super Bowl. And so a couple of people, I'm looking at the face, I'm like, okay. So I go,
They're in.
So I was thinking about doing this speech as like a bad guy in wrestling promo. And then people started going, and then I kind of teased it a little bit. I'm like, you want to know how I did it? I did it all by myself. I did it without any of your help. What are we doing here in this town of downtown Plymouth, Michigan? This place is a dump. And I cut the how did you do it speech as like a heel wrestler.
You did all that for them.
So I just did that.
Awesome.
I got to that point and I got some good laughs.
That's
but
great,
then I was like, all right, but no, honestly, I didn't do this by myself. In fact, I did very little of this by myself. I did the help with everybody here.
Yeah.
And then I went into my whole thing. But yeah, it was
Dude,
like,
that's really funny.
yeah, it was like cool, like testing the waters. And I thought about doing it like not prefacing it all. Just get up there and be like, you son of a bitch. I stayed sober this long. You had nothing to do with it. You can
You'd be worried they'd stop you, but you gotta leave, man, and not get it. But
yeah. But that's a big thing because when you do sobriety through the 12 steps, it's everybody's experience. Where we all try to stay sober by ourselves before the 12 steps, before the meetings. And we all found doing it as part of a group is the only way that any one of us has been able to do it. So yeah, I just thought that was a funny story. Did a little mini wrestling promo.
That's great.
Actually got a few laughs. No better feeling than getting some laughs out of in a public speaking format. It's so fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you got more promo work in than I do now. So
well, I always thought that would be. I don't know how you would spin it because there's people like R-Truth or Santino that have been able to tie in a ton of comedy into wrestling, but I don't know that it's ever been done where you do it authentically cutting promos but being still a threat in the ring. Maybe Kurt Angle, I guess, would be your example. But tying in comedy maybe in like a roast form or like rather than Cena battle
John
rapping.
Cena was kind of close to it, I guess, because
Yeah.
people it would get laughs, or especially from the kids.
Right.
You
Right.
get some laughs and stuff.
Yeah,
So he
but-
might have been close, and same with Angle. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Bobby. I'm pretty sure that was Bobby's idea, where he thought like tying in stand-up comedy with wrestling, you could do a good gimmick out of that. And I always like wondered. I'm like, yeah, I've never seen that done. Like,
Yeah.
and with the whole like roast style of comedy, like I said, Cena did the freestyle rapping, but like if you're roasting someone with like jokes, but also cutting them down and saying some good shit, like you might be able to make that work.
Yeah, I don't know enough, from a coaching perspective. Because I think we always, as kids or even as adults, we think this would be a great character as this kind of role for promos or for mic battles with other guys. I don't know if there's like a general idea that like, well, if you are this person on the microphone, like you do like you. Because R-Truth can still go in the ring and have serious matches, although he does have comedic spots a lot. So I think maybe for a lot of guys that like if you're gonna do comedy on the mic, maybe it's like you might have to kind of be funny in the ring.
Yeah.
Like you can't be like, haha, I'm the funny guy, and then be like the tough enforcer really, and be like a big badass. You might have to squirt a guy with a flower from your lapel.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, who's The Rock? He's like the best shit talker of all time. He did this whole thing where like,
Oh yeah,
made fun of everybody. Like, so I guess it's been done. But
yeah,
he was good at it.
yeah. That's true. I feel like it's probably only for like the really talented people to be able to be funny and still menacing, threatening, but make people laugh, and then also be able to go in the ring and do some funny spots or sell where people kind of think it's funny. You've seen clips of Triple H doing the longest sell ever, or just how people how The Rock takes the stunner, and it's actually, when you're watching it live, like as a kid, you're just like, whoa!
No, that's
but like
funny.
you watch it and you're like, okay, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But having that thin line between like this is becoming a joke and like okay, this is a spot that kind of makes you laugh a little bit, but it doesn't take you out of the match.
Yeah.
I think that's probably really hard, and probably why you don't see too many comedy gimmicks that also can be like really believable and serious in the ring.
Yeah.
As often, I guess. Maybe.
For sure.
I don't know though.
No, that makes sense. I gotta pee.
Okay.
Hey, is there any final thoughts, last words? R.I.P.s.
Oh, is there anybody I should call out? I don't know as well. Two things. One, another character I thought is from MSU when we in college we played SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 my freshman year. You were already a sophomore.
Okay.
But Kyle Furlick, I don't know if I've told you this. I think maybe I have. But Kyle Furlick, I don't know how well you know him. He's a really talented musician. I think he still does music, but he had like a band then. He's like, my stage name, my alter ego is Michael Fiasco. And that was like his character that he created in wrestling in the video game. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. We should be like a tag team. I'll be like Matt Frenzy. And so I considered that as a name, but he was also like, you can't be Matt. You have to be like something different because I've got like the M. You should be like, what's your middle name? I was like, Christopher. He's like, so Chris Frenzy. So,
okay.
But then I was like, I can never be like a Chris as my
Yeah.
wrestling character. When,
Yeah,
like, we're
I didn't know your
buddies.
middle name was Chris. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So that's one. And then the other thing, I'm going to call out.
Oh, shit.
And I don't know if this will be your gimmick, but we talked about it at Retro Slam. Copper Cliff, who's maybe a cop, who might not be a cop. Copper's supposedly the color, but he kind of looks like a cop. I'm calling you out. I hope that I get to see you in a student showcase match someday. You put that bruise on my chest. You think you're a big man. You think you own that ring tougher than me. You think you're going to learn faster than me. No chance. I'm calling out Copper Cliff to wrestle Gio Carcosa someday in the student showcase so I can get that win over you.
Dang, Copper Cliff, the pressure is on. The clock's ticking.
I'll have to tell him to look at this someday if I ever find out his real name.
Yeah.
I just call him Tall Guy.
Tall guy. You better answer his challenge, or you're gonna be a little bitch. I'll cut that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, man.
Sweet.
Well, good stuff. Let's go enjoy WrestleMania, brother.
Woo.
All right. Bye, everybody.